It's in the email. They're like close to 2 inches. We're gonna figure this out. Yeah, I just feel like we'll only use them for one time and then,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
mean, because the way I see it in my head, you know, the front of it is the shorter thing, and that's what the sticker is.
Yeah.
It'll be.
Good afternoon. Calling to order the meeting of the Bunton County Board of Elections for Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. Thanks again, y'all, for being here. We really do value the participation of the community in our meetings. Love having you here in person, but you can always participate virtually. We stream every one of our meetings live. It's just one of those silver linings from the pandemic. We started it then, and we're not about to give it up now. So just so you know, you don't need to come in to monitor what we do, but we love having you here. The first item is approval of the agenda for today's meeting. I hope everyone's had a chance to take a look. And without objection, we shall approve the agenda. Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next up is a review of our minutes of our last meeting. Our last meeting was on Tuesday, July 9th, long time ago. I hope everyone's had a chance to review the minutes of that meeting. Without objection, we'll approve the minutes of that meeting. Mr. Aceto?
I'd ask for a slight change to one of the entries.
Yeah, and I replied to you by email, but I haven't made the change yet because I wasn't.
Okay, it was simply, if I may, we had a discussion, a brief discussion on the applicability of the state ethics rules. And I recall that, I'm remembering that Corrine made a comment that because I keep getting, and maybe you do too, workday notices that we haven't sent in our county ethics disclosure. So, thank you. So, and I think Corrine, you'd invite, I'm getting workday notices that I haven't turned in my county ethics disclosure, and looking into it, I felt like it wasn't applicable to us, and I think, Jake, you
are correct.
You concur with that. So, and Corrine, I understood you to say that you had asked them to cut that out, and they didn't. So, not that it's a biggie. So I just wanted to make sure that that we had in the record that on inquiry about our ethics disclosures, that we are all agreed that it doesn't apply to us, that it's because we are state appointees.
I'm wondering if anyone else on the board's been receiving those notices from the county about filing an ethics disclosure report? But you've been receiving those notices. Have you been getting them, Glenn?
I thought I'd been through mine finally, and I didn't see it, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, they know better than to send them to me. I haven't seen one.
Really? Well, you're very ethical.
But ain't it the truth?
Yeah.
But I was happy to get the 4.89%, which I still don't understand.
So anyway, if you would be so kind as just add a sentence to that effect, and I just want to make sure that Corrine, that I heard what Corrine actually said, and just so that we've got that in the minutes.
Yes, so that is all accurate. I also was going to bring it up in the office updates today, if you wanted to address it that way instead of, I'm revisiting a topic from last time.
Well, that'll work. That'll work.
And
Just
then
wanna
you
get
don't
it
have to edit.
minutes
In the
to
record,
effect that,
right.
that we are not being slack, that we've been deliberately ignoring them, so.
Yep, we can address that, and
I
more
haven't
are
ignored a
coming.
thing.
So
I have not ignored a thing. I just didn't get any.
Well, not that.
Alrighty. So with respect to the minutes, circling back to the topic at hand, I'm going to try it again. Without objection, we will adopt the minutes of the meeting of July 9th, and hearing none, those minutes are adopted. Thank you, everybody. The next item on the agenda is number 3, office updates. Director Duncan.
All right, thank you. So I know that we already had discussion before the meeting on this topic, but we did attend the State Board Conference. That is a training conference in the summertime in August. And by law, the directors are all required to attend that conference, and then staff and board can go optionally. And that conference counts towards certification, which board and staff members are able to attain as well. And the thunder was stolen, but Steve Aceto was awarded that certification, and he was the only board member who got that for that entire year cycle. So congratulations to Steve. Next is our sticker contest is up and underway. It has been open for a few weeks now for voting on the final stickers. So if you haven't done that, please do so. I believe the deadline is the 18th.
That's correct.
Great. Yes. So go out there and vote on the sticker, and that sticker will be available at the in-person voting locations for this election. And we got some great submissions. We had a lot of submissions too. We had almost 70 artists submit. So it was a really great turnout. Good way to engage with our young people. All right, the next topic is very exciting to me, which is that we have finished filing at the local and the state level, and so we can start developing ballots. Buncombe County has already gotten our first ballot proof. That process is an extensive one, so we get the proof of the ballots, and we'll have 28 ballot styles for this election. Buncombe County will. So we get those from the vendor, the county reviews it, then the state reviews it, then we do it again. And we do it 3 times until we're sure that it's correct. So that process takes a while. But I think that we should have that complete by the end of the month. And the reason why that's exciting is that we'll have sample ballots by the end of the month. We've been getting lots of questions from voters wanting to know what are we voting on? And the sample ballot is the way that you find that. And those are available through the voter information tool on the state board's website and on the county's website. You just type in your name. You can find all kinds of stuff about to make sure that you're registered, that your information is correct, but also your sample ballots will be there, which are very useful to help do the research. And you can take those into the polling locations with you too, which can help speed up the voting process for you.
And that would be by when?
I think by the end of the month. Definitely by when we send out absentee by mail ballots, which is September 6th. The whole state is doing it at the same time, and so the state is verifying proofs and the vendors are verifying proofs at the same time, so it's not a definite date, but I think soon, and that's really exciting. The other thing that can happen now is developing our candidate planning guide. So we'll develop that guide and then send it out to all the candidates so that they have all of the information as well. Any questions on that? It's an exciting mile marker for an election, getting those ballots. All right, the next is just awareness that we have our kind of election promotion materials that we do every election. They are ready. So we have we always call it the 3 ways flyer that talks about registering, looking up your information. This also mentions photo ID since it's new for this election cycle. And then the 3 ways to vote with all of the different deadlines on there. So that can be really useful to people. And for the audience, we do have them back here if you want them. Then we have 2 early voting informational flyers. This paper one is meant to be able to put up on bulletin boards and things. It has the hours, all of the voting locations, and a map. And then we also have the palm card version of that so that you can have this on your refrigerator, bring it out to outreach events, those kind of things. We have to be extra careful about advertising early voting because every county does it differently. So each county needs to be responsible for making sure that they advertise what those sites and hours are. So we have 14 early voting locations. Early voting is October 17th through the 2nd. And we emailed that to you just a few hours ago. So you have that in your inbox as well. And then the early voting and 3 ways flyer are on our website. All right, and then to revisit the topic from last week on the conflict of interest forms that the county was asking to be filled out, I confirmed with HR that does not apply to board members. So you don't have to fill that out. That's something that will happen annually, and it's about to happen again. So you'll get notices again, and you don't have to do that. That doesn't apply to you. I wanted to remind everyone that on the September 10th meeting, that's when we're going to do the initial briefing of the budget. We're doing a good job collecting that data right now. And wherever we are in that process, we'll give you an update just to keep you along as we start building that for fiscal year 26. Tomorrow we have a poll worker info session. So that's the info sessions that we initially were going to do just one, but there has been a lot of interest. So this is our 3rd one. We're going to have that at noon. So if anyone wants to come and know what it means to be a poll worker, you're welcome to do that. That's again at noon right here in this room, in the boardroom at 59
That's
Woodfin
worker,
Place.
not observer.
Correct, yes. Observer training will be later. I don't think we've chosen those dates, but soon. I already mentioned this, but absentee ballots will go out September 6th, which is less than a month away. And I think that I have said this before too, but I always think that it's a fun fact to reiterate, which is that North Carolina is always, because of the long absentee by mail period, we are always the first one to vote in a presidential election. So the first voter in North Carolina to vote absentee by mail is the first voter to vote in the nation. So voting is right around the corner. And then lastly, we have quite a bit on the agenda today. We're going to go through voting location changes, MAT appointments, and early voting poll worker appointment, or discussion of poll worker appointments. We're not actually going to do the appointments today. But I wanted to say that with the early voting poll worker appointments, Karen is out, and she's the most knowledgeable one here. She is sick, but she is available virtually if we have questions. So I will be giving that presentation, doing the best I can, but Karen is available if needed. The other thing that I was going to try today is for each of those topics, I'll give just a broad overview of what those things mean, and then staff will come in and they'll do, here's what we're doing today, and give that presentation. So hopefully that can help us all understand what's happening in each meeting. And those are my updates.
All right, colleagues, any questions, comments? Thank you, Director Duncan. The next item up is voting location changes.
All right, so for voting location changes, Ryan Oliver is our manager for that, so he's going to be presenting the actual changes, but I wanted to kind of go over what voting location changes entail. So first of all, in Buncombe County, we have 80 election day voting locations. So that's a lot of voting locations, and they can be difficult to find. When a location is unable to serve as a voting place anymore, as long as it's within notice, they have to give 45 days notice. then we start to look for another polling location. When we look for polling locations, we're looking for things like, does it have adequate parking? Does it fit ADA qualifications? Do we have enough power? Do we have enough space? Is it in precinct? There's a lot of things that we look for polling locations. Again, it is difficult to find these, especially when we have so many in our county. Once we find these, there are things that need to happen, and one of those is a board approval. And that happens by resolution, and we have to do that 45 days before an election. So we're within that, we're doing great. And then if it's just a transfer, if we're just moving a polling location temporarily for some reason, like in the municipal elections, sometimes we do that if the entire precinct isn't voting, then we have to get state approval for that. That's not the case for this. This is these are actual transfers, and Ryan will go over exactly what they are. We have 4 of those. Then we make sure that we do an ADA survey. So there's a specific ADA survey that the state has us do for all polling locations to make sure we're in compliance. And then we have a voting place agreement with those polling locations. And that helps us have good communication over when are the polling locations expected to have voting equipment in them, when are we going to deliver supplies, all of those kind of things. Make sure that we have the contact information for the people who have the keys to the doors and all of those kind of things. Then once the board approves, within 30 days of the election, we have to notify the voters. So we do that by sending out a card, a voter confirmation card. People have gotten a lot of those this year for district changes primarily. So people are really familiar with what they are by now, which is nice. So that's how they get noticed of what their new polling location is. And then all the other internal things happen. We need to make maps, we need to update website, we need to do all of the things to make sure that all of the other pieces are updated. So that's the overall process. Any questions before Ryan gives the suggested changes?
So we're going to go over 4 proposed voting location changes today. The good news is all 4 of these locations are in the same precinct, and these are permanent relocations. So the first one is our old voting location is at West Asheville Rec Center, and the proposed is at Martin Nesbitt Jr. Discovery Academy. And the reason why we're leaving West Asheville Rec Center is because it's being converted into offices, so all that nice wide open space for voting is going to be gone. So we did find Martin Nesbitt Academy. It's about 2.5 miles away, and it has plenty of wide open space for voting, plenty of parking also.
How far did you say? 2
About 2.5 miles.
Doesn't this actually move that precinct back into its actual precinct?
It does.
Yeah, it does.
So what happens to 16.2? I mean, it goes to 14.2?
Right, it was just outside of the precinct previously, and now it's back in. Because we were having, like,
16.2 still has a
So
voting.
16.2's got, that's
Yeah.
somewhere else.
yeah, 16.2, I believe it's still at the West Asheville Library, I believe, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a hand over there, Jake. Is it?
I just wanted the precinct number and you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two advantages there. So we used to have 2 precincts that were right next to each other, and that caused some confusion. So now there is that separation. And as Mary Ann pointed out, it moves it back into precinct. So I think this is a better overall location. And I also failed to mention in my overview, but whenever we make changes, we'll also have signs at the former location, since it's new, to say, oh, if you're in 14.2, your location is now here. So in addition to the cards, we'll have other ways of communicating that.
Okay, and the next one we have is going to be, the current location is Woodfin Community Center, and the proposed location is going to be Woodfin Elementary. And the reason why we're having to leave Woodfin Community Center is because they're undergoing some renovations, and they won't be available in the fall. But we did find Woodfin Elementary. It's right down the road. It's within walking distance from the previous location.
It's also easier to find.
Okay, and if nobody has any questions about that one, we'll go ahead and go to the third one.
And what Jake means by easier to find is that the Woodfin Community Center was, you had to turn off into residential area and find the community center. The school's right off of Elk Mountain Road.
And it's like right next door to I-26. Very easy to find, very easy to get to. And the reason I bring it up is one day I spent a whole lot of time trying to find Woodfin Community Center, more than I should have. More time, it took more time than it should have. So it's-
All right, and the next one is going to be Fairview Volunteer Fire Department off of Charlotte Highway. We're having to leave there because they're having renovations also. And we have located a community center, Spring Mountain Community Center off of Old Fort Road.
How far is that?
It is approximately 4 miles.
And the bulk of the population is where in that area? Do you know?
Probably closer to the highway, but well, it's actually 3 miles, but they're already further up Charlotte Highway. There's already 2 voting locations, so I was thinking that maybe this could possibly eliminate some confusion if this one was off of Charlotte Highway just a bit.
Yeah, last election, I got some comments from some of the poll workers there from chief judges that they were not terribly happy with that, mainly on that confusion. So, and they had suggested that. So that's you walked right into that one. So congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
That's great.
Okay, we'll go to the last one. It'll be Firstborn Baptist Church up in Weaverville. Reason we're leaving there is because they just decided they wanted to go another way, and they weren't interested in having voting there anymore. So we did find a community center, Beach Mountain Community Center. It's about 4 miles away, and should be a pretty good site.
And Beach Mountain Community Center is a county-owned facility too, so we won't have to pay for that facility.
And presumably, we won't have issues in the future about them deciding not to host this. Just the way the church has just changed their mind.
Yes, likely to be more stable, and publicly owned buildings can be acquired for voting locations by law.
All right, colleagues, any questions? We have 4 resolutions before us. And I would entertain a motion to approve these either 4 at once or individually, whichever you prefer.
I would move we approve them all at once.
All right. A motion before the board is to approve the precinct relocations that were described by staff, moving precincts 14.2, 39.2, 59.1, and 70.1. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. All righty. Next item on the agenda is appointments to multi-partisan assistance teams. Mr. Tate.
Okay, so Justin Tate is going to present the suggested MAT appointments to you this afternoon. So MAT appointments are the multi-partisan assistance teams, These are teams that are trained by the county board and are sent out to assisted living facilities to help request absentee ballots and get those returned if there is assistance needed. And the intention of that is to make sure that training happens at those facilities so that there is not improper assistance going on at those facilities. The teams need to be bipartisan. We have worked with the parties to make sure that they know that we welcome names suggested from them. The law does not require that, but we just like having good relationships. So we go ahead and incorporate those names. Our goal for this election was to have 10 teams since it's a bigger election. And so we were looking for 20 people, and Justin will go into details on how that turned out. That's also what we budgeted for. So that's within the budget. MAT teams are composed of 2 people of opposite parties. So, in this county and in this state right now, it's a registered Republican and registered Democrat. Unaffiliated are allowed to assist, but that is only when the County Board of Elections unanimously votes to allow those on the list. We, of course, try very hard to just send out the Republican and Democrat teams. The selections that we made, and Justin will go over this again too, are based on previous experience, technological capabilities, availability, and then we also make sure to deploy them only upon successful completion of training, which is required by law. So a list will be presented to you today, and it's also a little bit different from poll worker appointments in that for MAT appointments, the Republican members of the board need to approve the Republican suggestions. Democrats, and then any unaffiliated would have to be approved by the whole board. So you'll be presented with a list today that should be familiar with you. It'll have the names and then lines for each party underneath them. It should be self-explanatory, but if not, raise the flag. And then once they are approved by you all, they will start training, which actually we start tomorrow. We have match sessions. I think we have 3 sessions to get people trained. And the law says that they are certified for 2 years, but we want to do trainings every election. So just to make sure, election changes all the time, so we'll make sure that we train each election and present to you each election. Are there any questions on any of that?
Yeah, I do have a question about the 2-year certification. We operate on a 2-year cycle. Is this the same 2 years?
So that is unclear to me. Definitely is not spelled out very clearly in the law, and certification is not the same as appointment either. So
Right.
let's
Appointment is election by election by election.
Yeah. So this would be that they've taken training and they're certified to be a MAT member for 2 years.
Okay.
I think that the law is a little unclear on the appointment period. I suggest that it be each election so that we can stay trained.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
I'm just curious, and you'll probably get to this later, but my impression is, or my recollection is, there's a lot of pretty experienced MAT team members in the county. Is that right? Do people tend to do it over and over again?
Yeah, that tends to be the case with all of our workers. So MATs early voting workers, election day. Once you get over that initial hurdle, it is a lot to learn. It's definitely a lot to learn. Have to go through trainings. There's just a lot of people like it. I think they're proud to do it, and then it also, you have a community, and you are directly helping people. So yes, we have lots of experience, and people like to return.
What is the statutory requirement for appointing the MAT teams? Is there a time period? Is that a 2-year period?
The appointment is not clear. Appointment period is not clear.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought.
Mhm.
So that's sort of left up to us since it's unclear.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's why I like per election.
And that's helpful too, because what we have found is among the folks who do this work for us, there might be an election where they're just not available. Second primaries loom large in that. And it's nice to have the flexibility to do it election by election by election. Mr. Tate.
Thank you, sir. First, I want to thank Karen Ray for working with the parties as closely as she did. Our list looks a lot more full and complete compared to the primary, so it was her work and diligence working with them that made our lives a lot easier, as you can see. And one of the things, as Director Duncan went over, is there are some that aren't participating, and there are a lot that are returning, but we did set a pretty strict guideline. We ran into this during the primaries where we had a few people of a particular party who were going out all the time, and then those that had signed up but didn't really volunteer. So in other words, we were putting a lot of pressure on only a couple of people. So we wanted to get around, we wanted to fix that problem. We didn't want to, these people, they're helping us, they're going out and they're doing it, and we wanted to be able to give them the backup that they needed, and that's why we worked with them as closely as we did. So it was be able to work at least 3 to 4 days a week, 4 and 8 hours. There's usually 2 shifts sometimes on these, and so those are the main criteria, and that's what working with our employment agency helped us with. So we gave them those set of criteria. Say, hey, we're getting where we need to be using the tablets more often. We want our workers to be able to do this with more proficiency. Give us the people that you know are able to do that, and that's what the poll or the parties did as well. So it was a 1, 2, 3 punch in order to get this list. We do have 2 names that are unaffiliated. One just showed early interest, and the other is a returning unaffiliated. So that's about it. I'll go ahead and get this started on this side. Let you take a look at the names.
Thank you.
I just had one other question. I can't recall exactly what the regulation says, but the way we do it in Buncombe County is, I think the regulation says, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the facility calls and asks for somebody to come out. But in Buncombe County, y'all will initiate a call to the facility all around the county to see if they want somebody. Is that how that works?
We send out a notice to all of the facilities that we're aware of, and we work with DHHS too to make sure that we're getting all the facilities that we are aware of in Buncombe County to let them know this is a service, and then they request that service. And also an individual within any of those can also request that they come to.
We do it threefold: call, email, paper, mailing. But as a follow-up to that, we have 34 of the 42 listed facilities already booked for next week. So we're already ahead of schedule as far as that's concerned. So we're good, and we appreciate these facilities opening up to us. I know the voters really appreciate it. We're proud of it. Fun fact: we're at already 2,320 absentee requests for this election, and there were only 5,000 total in 2016. So we're looking at higher numbers this go around. So, but we're very, very fortunate to have the MAT team members that we have. So if you would sign.
Indeed.
Sally had a
Yeah. yeah.
Just a quick question about the facilities. Does that include group homes where people live that might need to?
It's any covered facility is what the law dictates. So
Okay. So covered by Medicaid, what does that mean?
no, covered just mean if it's when you say group facility.
Well, I know of a lot of group homes that have folks that are disabled that live in those group homes rather than a true facility, so that's what I'm trying to get at, that those folks don't get out too much and they're
That's
citizens and,
in those type of communities, we have to be careful because we can't go to individuals' homes.
Right.
So as long as they have a centralized location, then we're okay. So.
Yeah, and the covered facilities is defined in the law. I don't know it off of the top of my head, but yes, there's someone flipping through pages over here. Maybe we'll get there. But it's a definition.
It's a tiny
not
book.
a guess.
it's a, yeah, you should have it pretty quickly here, yeah.
And before, like Director Duncan said, they'll go through the training tomorrow. They have to sign a declaration. And in addition to that, we just have them take the official election oath as well, so.
And then Justin, since the audience can't see, names are not necessary, but could you talk about how many Republicans we had, how many Democrats we had, how many unaffiliated?
We have a wonderfully balanced team of 11 Democrats, 11 Republicans, and 2 unaffiliated. So we are loaded up, and so you guys will go ahead and sign now. That's all I need from you, or if you want to.
I will. I just want to observe that I've been doing this for a little while, and this is the first time I have ever seen a full roster all at once before any voting has started. And I want to thank Mr. Tate and those who assisted him in putting this together so well. Really do appreciate it.
Karen Ray and the rest of our MAT team, Stacia Shields and Katie Holkauer, they are the ones that did most of the work on that. So.
Yeah, in the past, you probably remember every once in a while we'd come and say, hey, we have some more mats to appoint. So we tried to be, front end loaded this time, and I think that'll work out a lot better. It'll help with training too, be more streamlined with training.
No, and you just have more certainty going into the whole operation.
Yeah.
That's got to help Mr. Tate.
I just didn't want to work people as hard. Like I said, we had a few that were very dedicated and they filled in the best they could, but you can only ask so much of a few people.
And just so you all know, those who do work on multi-partisan assistance teams are compensated. I believe it's $17 an hour, plus mileage on your vehicle and that sort of thing. So when Director Duncan says we budgeted for this, I mean that's what we're talking about. It's not a huge expense, but it is considerable. But it's just important that we get every last person who's eligible in this community to vote. And for some folks, it's really, really hard. They can't get out, can't get about. Director Duncan.
We have wonderful people backing us up. You know, that person who was interrupting our board meeting by not muting. They looked up what the definition of covered facility. A facility including a hospital, clinic, nursing home, or adult home care that provides residential or inpatient health care in the state that is licensed or operated pursuant to Chapter 122C, Chapter 131D, or Chapter 131E of the general statutes, or by federal government or an Indian tribe. That's the definition.
So it sounds like they've got a license or something to
Right.
Yes.
to be that kind of facility.
Thank you.
Good.
I have such great staff.
It's true. And as a result, we have smooth elections. Yeah, question? Could you do me a favor, please? Just identify yourself.
Sure, I'm Wendy Cook.
Hey, Wendy.
Did you say medical? Those facilities were medical? Is that word in there? So intellectual disabilities wouldn't?
I think it's not. I think it's included.
Okay.
Check it again, but I'm pretty sure I was listening for that piece too.
Yeah, I think that the key is the legal citation.
Yeah.
because the General Assembly passed a law that identified a certain type of facility that has to be licensed or somehow blessed by the state. And when we look at that law, that's when we know exactly who's covered, and that's why I'm really glad that staff had the opportunity back in the office to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't say the word medical, it does say healthcare.
Healthcare. It's nice and broad. Physical health, mental health, psychological health.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Mr. Cito.
Can that team members be double dippers? Can they do other poll workers? Positions.
Thank you for the question. So for early voting, Matt's and early voting are happening at the same time, so we don't want to do that. On election day, Matt's is not happening, so you could be an election day worker. Good question.
And early voting workers can also be election day workers.
Yes, they can.
But you haven't typically, you have either Matt or early voting
Right.
and election day.
That was a requirement that we set this time, because last time we had conflicts. Like just scheduling.
All right, colleagues, we all saw the list that was proposed by staff for the MAT appointments. I would entertain a motion to approve the list that was proposed by staff.
Also move.
Thank you, Ms. Stein. The motion before the board is to approve the multi-part assistance team appointments that were recommended by staff for the upcoming election. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Mr. Tate, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 6, a discussion of early voting poll worker appointments.
All right, and I will do my best with this one. Devin, is Karen successfully available if we need her? Okay, fantastic. All right, so we are at the time to discuss early voting appointments. So this is just a discussion meeting. The appointment meeting would need to happen in September, which I believe is September 10th. That's the deadline to make sure that we're adhering to law on that. But we want to make sure that you have plenty of time to look over these and understand the process, especially since it's new. In this election cycle, the law changed for early voting. Early voting workers in the past were purely recruited and placed by election staff. The law changed so that it was more like election day, where the parties nominate names, and then that is brought to the board so that there's some preference in there. We have kind of just for a context of things, there's the law portion, and then I know that we say this a lot, but it just is very true that we have had a lot more party input in the past few years, and especially this year with all of the law changes. We've had we've done a lot of work towards that. So each election we do a little bit better, and that's the same with this case here. So for the early voting sites, we have a big job in Buncombe County. Recruiting is difficult anyway, finding people who are able to work for 17 days and who are able to do all of the technological things that we need, make sure that they understand how to follow the laws and all of that. We have 14 early voting sites, so that's a lot of workers. Because the early voting period is long, then each day we need to do 2 shifts, so we have that too. So it's kind of double the workers. We prioritize people who have experience, because that, of course, helps have good workers. And then the last election was the first time that we used express votes during early voting, so having that experience is also really helpful. Same with photo ID law. So we are lucky to have a lot of veterans that were available to us. Now, that said, in the last election in the primary, that was the first time that we needed to have party involvement, and that was really like a quick switch that we had to make, which was hard for the parties also. But I feel that we worked really well together. We came up with a list, implemented those, and then did that again for this election, and we have better party balance. So we keep having closer party balance each time, because it just takes time to be able to find those workers, get them experienced, and make sure that they're a good fit. So I'm really happy about that. And Karen has some statistics here that she left me with, which are that 74% of the people that are on the list that's going to get handed out to you are returning people. So they worked in the primary election. And then 6% are from elections before that. And we have about 20% newcomers. Because we definitely want to be training new people too. We want to make sure that we're refreshing that group of people as we go along. So we aimed to have at very least, we aim to have 2 Republicans at every shift at every site for our big sites, and 1 shift at all the sites that have less workers, Republicans and Democrats. So we want to make sure that we have that representation at each of the sites. Unaffiliated voters are part of this as well. Another thing that we have talked about in previous discussions about all poll worker appointments is the kind of challenges with the deadlines that are in the law compared to the deadlines that we have to meet for training poll workers and getting them through the Spherion process and doing the background checks. So we worked with the parties to back up that deadline to get names to us by August 8th. And that was really helpful to make sure that we were able to have this list as ready as it is for you. And it's pretty ready. It's great. It took time to get here, but we are here. And so the teams that will be presented to you today are currently 27% Republicans, 29% unaffiliated, and 44% Democrats. And that is an increase in Republican representation over the past elections.
How much increase, do we know? Percentage-wise?
I don't see any statistics for that, but we can get it. We can definitely get it.
Yeah, okay.
Let me write that down. And that increase is largely due to the parties really putting an effort out there. It really is a difficult job to do, especially
Would you
with
like me to
all of
jump
the
in,
other
Corinne?
things that are supposed to be that the parties are responsible for. Recruiting's a big job. Karen has given us some statistics already. I love this. Okay, so in the last election, okay, well, so the primary election, more data keeps popping up on the screen. Okay, well, I mean, I said that that Republican representation went up, but according to what Karen is saying now is that we're 17% now, and we were 17% in the last election. But we had
Can I jump in?
55%. Wait, I think I think there might be a miscommunication, because these are the same numbers that are on this sheet. So, I'm sorry, I think I got distracted here. So I think I actually have both numbers. I think I read them incorrectly. So our current team is 27% registered Republicans, 29% unaffiliated, and 44% Democrats.
Okay, and when you say current,
The
That's
one
the list that we're
present
gonna,
today.
going to present to you today.
okay, good.
For the primary, I'm so sorry, I just confused everyone. It was 17% Republican, so we went from 17% to 27%, so 10% increase. And then for unaffiliated, it's about the same, 28%. And then last election, it was 55% Democrat, and now it's 44%. Sorry, it took me so long to get around that thing. Does it make sense? Since I messed up all those numbers, just
So
want to make sure
essentially,
we're
the
clear.
Republicans have gained 10% in their numbers since the primary.
Yes. And unaffiliated representation is about the same.
I'm just glad they all add up to 100%.
Yeah,
Good.
That's nice.
Good.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yes, and there's a lot of things to consider in these appointments, so it's really difficult to get to these numbers, so we should be proud of ourselves. We meaning election services and the parties. We also have 5 backup captains. That's 1 Republican, 3 unaffiliated, and 1 Democrat. And then we have 15 backup workers, 3 Republicans, 7 unaffiliated, and 5 Democrats. So in making these suggestions, we talked about having experience and having been nominated by the parties, and kind of our previous suite of workers that were not subject to the party nominations, and so we have a lot of unaffiliateds that were experienced. Which is great, because it's difficult to find workers that can work 17 days. So that's okay, and it'll just take time to make that adjustment.
That's having a big complement of unaffiliateds makes sense. It's the #1 registrant category in the state of North Carolina. It's the #1 registrant category in Buncombe County. I like having unaffiliateds on the team. I don't want to exclude people from this process just due to affiliation.
And then something that we really struggle with is competency on a computer. So we have to make sure that people are computer literate. And Karen has that highlighted here. So she wanted to make sure that I said that. And then I think all of you are aware, but it is numbered memo 2023-7. Is it 7 or? Yep, 2023-7 is the one that details the appointment of early voting officials if we need to reference anything. So we want to make sure that they can work well on the computer, that their schedules are compatible. People tend to want to work at certain sites because they live near certain sites, so they have to be willing to go. You can't just tell them to go wherever. And then they are subject to background checks too, so we make sure that that goes through all of that. And then, of course, also by law, they are required to do training. And that will start September 16th for, September 17th for early voting workers. And I think maybe we can present the list and then just answer any questions from
Right, thank you.
there. And I will do my best to answer, and then just reminding everyone that Karen is here for backup if we need. And again, no action is needed or can be at this board meeting, because we're required to announce the board meeting date that we do appointments, and that's September 10th.
All right, I'm wondering if anyone can tell us about the chief judge designation that appears next to the names of some of these nominees?
Yes, so we've kind of had discussions about this before. It's a kind of tricky thing. So in the numbered memo, it acknowledges this sort of problem that we have when there are when the appointment is for a long time period, 17 days, and 2 shifts. That means you're gonna have people who can't do the whole 17 days, or someone gets sick, or there's an important appointment or something like that that needs to happen. So you can't designate just one party judge. That would not make any sense for a location. So you need to have 2 party judges and 2 chief judges, which are captains. We decided to keep that terminology for training because to not confuse people so that they understand they're for early voting. And then designate the rest as party judges so that there's the flexibility in there. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm talking about those red CJs.
The red CJs are people who are also election day chief judges.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep, I'm sorry. I
That's simple.
explained something else, but you probably wanted to know that too, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I already knew that. I just didn't know
Yes.
these little red CJs.
Yep, those are election day.
Okay,
People doing double duty.
great.
On each site, you have a captain for each shift, but none of the other workers are designated as judges.
That is what I was just explaining prematurely. So all the workers will be trained as party judges so that they can be interchanged if needed.
All of them.
All of them.
Mr. Quinn,
Mr. Aceto.
Corinne, I'm looking at Friendship Center. There's an appointment for Susan P. Watson / Dawn Watson.
Yeah.
What does that? Is that
You're
like-
wondering.
Is that like one person or a composite person or what is that?
Let's see if Karen can answer that.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? If
I think Karen is trying to talk.
Can you hear me okay?
Quietly, we can hear you.
Okay, I will try to be as loud as possible. That husband and wife team wanted to share the same slot. And one of them works Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and one of them works on Tuesday, Thursday weekend shifts.
So this is like poll worker by the entireties. Okay. So, and I'm looking again, Karen. Karen, how are you? Thank you very much. You did a marvelous job. Sorry you're sick. South
Getting better.
Markham Library, second page, got another / unaffiliated Republican. Sounds like an oxymoron, or maybe not. Go ahead.
So that, I believe there may even be 2 people that are designated that way. And what it indicates is that this is a person who came to me through one of the 2 parties. So they have the full backing and support of that political party, but their chosen affiliation in the voter records is unaffiliated.
I think that's very helpful to show that. I'm glad you did it. It's helpful to me.
If I recall correctly, that for the Democrat and Republican nominees, you have to select them from the people who the parties propose, unless they fail the good moral character test, correct?
Yeah, unless they otherwise don't qualify.
Yeah, Was there anybody who, so I take it all the Republicans and all the Democrats were people that either party nominated?
There's a lot of people on the list that have come to us as veterans, and they've worked for us for at least one and sometimes even more than 5 or 6 different election cycles. So some of these people are just seasoned early voting workers that were asked if they would like to come back and work again and said yes.
And these lists were provided to both the parties, so they could see and add names and give suggestions to.
At what point were the party leaders provided this information?
So, and Karen, you can give exact dates on things if you have them, but we have been working with the parties since the beginning of the year on different deadlines and kind of making sure that we're in communication with things. I sent the list a few weeks ago. That was kind of the updated list, but there was a lot of communication before then that Karen was doing. So I can speak to what I did, but there's lots of in-person meetings and emails and phone calls about what slots where we needed extra input. We talked about making sure that we had at least 2 party people of representation at each. So if we were weak in some spots, we made sure that we gave extra, made sure that the parties understood that and could help us find fill those spots.
Thank you.
So Karen met with both parties in early July to discuss the procedures and what was needed, and more emails and things that happened in between there. And then I sent out the updated list on July 29th.
Thanks.
And then I wanted to point out too, there's one person.
West Asheville Branch Library.
That has a not confirmed next to that, so that person we're talking to and making sure that they can make, that they're actually available for that time. And I think that's the only one,
Yeah,
which is amazing.
Right.
Karen, what is on the backup workers? There's one that's in peach.
I think that just may be, I don't see that on my copy that was sent to me, but the peach color usually indicates that it's a new worker.
Okay.
I sent her the name and she said yes, new.
Okay, great.
Director, when is the deadline for parties to give you nominations for this voting?
So and it differs from the law requirement, but we worked with them to have that deadline be August 8th, so that we would have enough time to get the list together, get them through Spherion, make sure that everything's ready for training that starts September 17th.
Isn't the statutory requirement September the 5th?
It
If we're
might
gonna
be.
appoint on the 10th.
That might be this. I would have to look to see when that deadline was or is statutorily. But the parties agreed to have them earlier so that we could have the list formulated to you now. Because there's so many pieces that we have to complete. That statutory deadline is little close to training.
Right. All right, colleagues. We will meet next on Tuesday, September 10th. And at that meeting, we will vote on these appointments. So we've got 4 weeks to review these. I would encourage anyone who has a question about one or more of the recommendations here to contact Director Duncan, who can coordinate with Ms. Ray to answer any questions that you might have. But I'm hoping that when we do reconvene in September, we will be ready to go. This is pretty incredible when there's only one slot in here that's, we'll see.
It's crazy.
It's
Great.
I've been coming to these meetings for a long time. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, it has never looked like this early in the process. I want to thank Ms. Ray for this, but I really want to thank the 2 major parties for working so closely with staff. You can see the results of that work with the changing composition of roster of early voting officials. And I think it's a tribute to the dedication that the folks in the parties who are working on this project are showing to it. And the community benefits from it tremendously. Director Duncan.
I just wanted to make sure that Karen, did I miss anything? Is there anything that we want to make sure that the board has before we move along?
I feel everything is good.
Excellent. And are there any questions that you
Right.
know now
Right.
that we can start looking into so that we have whatever you need for the next?
My only question is, how does the timing that we put to the parties fit in with 21 days notice to the parties that Mr. Cox was talking about at the conference?
That is a great question. So that's another piece of the law. You have to give 21 days notice for when the appointments actually take place, which is why we have to do it on September 10th. We have to pick a date and then give 21 days notice, which I gave they require it to be from the director. I gave that by email to both of the parties before the 21 days. So we did it. We checked that box.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions? All right, thank you. Thank you, staff. Look forward to the next meeting. Speaking of the next meeting, I see that's the next item on the agenda. The next meeting date is Tuesday, September 10th, 2024, 3:30 p.m. in this room. But before we adjourn, I'm wondering, is there anyone who has any questions or comments for the board today? Thank you all. It's great to see a full room here. No, seriously. Having your eyes on our work is healthy for the process. So we really appreciate your presence.
What time is that on September 10th?
3:30 p.m. Yes, ma'am. Okay, if you wouldn't mind identifying yourself, for the record.
Cindy Grunwald. I am very impressed by the scope of everything that it takes to pull off the election, to pull off the voting process, and how well it was all laid out and detailed and put forth, and so I love that.
Thank you, Cindy. We are fortunate to have a highly accomplished staff who make things work very smoothly here. They get our meetings organized, and you're right, the amount of work that occurs to make an election happen smoothly is phenomenal. And that's why we like folks coming in here, seeing what we do. Wait till we go down to the warehouse and do some machine testing and that kind of stuff. No. There's so many pieces of this whole thing. And when people come in and observe it, then they can go back and, tell friends and neighbors, hey, you wouldn't believe all the stuff they're doing down there in election services. Because so much of what we do, our success really depends on the trust that the community has in our work. Mm-hmm. And that's why we want the community to see us work, because we think it's really, really high caliber. We don't think it, we know it. And if folks come in and observe it, we do believe they'll feel the same way. And when folks trust the process, they use the process. And that's our objective, maximum participation. Thank you for those comments. They're appreciated.
I'd like to add something to that as well, just from attending the conference, the state conference, that every county in our state has a lot of leeway to set the services up as they feel like works in their community within the parameters of the law, of course. But when I talked with some people that were doing presentations that were national presenters, they also say that the state of North Carolina is seen as like one of the top 5 in the nation. So I can't test that every county is going to be is going to do what we do, but I can say that from people's eyes further out, that North Carolina is seen as one of the leaders, and the leadership at the state level of the board or of the election services is really excellent too.
Yeah, that's a good point. North Carolina has greater election transparency than almost any other state in the union, and that makes for a whole lot of work at the state level. But again, the payoff is confidence in the process. Thank you, Ms. Stein. Anyone have any more questions, comments? Love seeing y'all here. Oh, there's a question. Hey, would you mind identifying yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
That's good.
I'm Hazel Thornton.
Hey, Hazel.
I'm here on behalf of the Buncombe County Democratic Party, and I
Okay.
also serve on the Woodfin Township Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, an elected official. Thank you for being here.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm glad to do it. So tomorrow is a poll worker information session?
Yeah, at noon.
At noon. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
And where will that take place?
Right here.
Right here. Okay, thank you.
All righty. Question in the back?
I'm Pamela Squire. I am 40.2, but I actually have an email from Karen saying that the poll worker session is on Thursday the 15th at noon. Are there 2 of them this week?
It's Wednesday, the 15th.
She's right. I think it is Thursday.
Wait a minute.
This is very good that we have fact
Hey, now,
checkers.
whoa. No.
Thursday the 14th, but what?
Well, the Thursday isn't the 14th.
I mean, Thursday the 15th. I can't read. It's Thursday. It is your
You're right.
birthday.
You're right. You're right. It is Thursday. It's not
Matt.
tomorrow. My bad.
Matt training's tomorrow.
Matt training it.
Poll workers is Thursday.
It's too busy of a calendar. I'm sorry. I'm down here every day.
Transparent, but we're a bit confused. So we're transparent.
Have mercy.
Yes, that was
Transparent. We are transparently confused.
Yep. Thank you for that. It is on our website, and it is correct on our website.
Thursday the 15th. And before I make another blunder, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Excellent meeting.
Happy early birthday. Happy birthday.